Everybody. Hello. Welcome to Practitioner Tuesday training. I'm very excited to be here with you today, where we meet every week to train on functional anatomy and optimal alignment and orthopedic body work to get our clients out of pain. Hey, Lisa, welcome to training. I'm so happy to see you. I'm your host for the hour. For those of you who have not met yet, I am Gina Schatz, and I am excited to walk you through the journey of the next hour. I know we have so many new members here, so many new subscribers, I should say, on YouTube. So welcome. I'm happy to have you, like really over the moon delighted. And we're meeting here every week live. Lisa's in our club seats, which is why you see her on camera, but please feel free to use the chat feature the whole time that we're live and ask questions because I'm happy to answer them for you. By the way, because we have so many new subscribers, we're having a party. We're having a YouTube subscriber party. We're going to meet for a special subscriber masterclass. So mark your calendars now for April 29th. That will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. I can't remember which one we're in right now, but we're in New York City time zone. So please mark your calendars for that. The link is here on the YouTube channel. You've probably seen it already a few times. The class is my gift to you. It is a free training. It is an extra training. It is to celebrate those of us who are here on the YouTube channel together. I've been live on YouTube for years, and our channel is just now gaining traction, and I want to celebrate that with you. I've heard some other conversations and other comments and other videos and other places where folks are like, oh yeah, well, it's supposed to be a 90-minute class, but how much of that's going to be a sales pitch? It's not a sales pitch. You guys, please come and just enjoy some extra training so that we can do the things that we all love to do, which is talk shop together. That's what we're going to do on April 29th. So please mark your calendar. Everybody here on the YouTube channel, you're welcome to join. Today, our topic is on intrinsic core. What is it? Where is it? How do you know if you're navigating it? We're going to clear up some confusion about what actually is intrinsic core, what's not intrinsic core, and why do we need to know that? Like, what is the value of knowing that when we're working with clients and getting folks out of pain? So if you have an idea right now what you believe intrinsic core to be, get ready because I'm going to ask you first when we're talking intrinsic core. I want to know what you know it to be so that I can, crush any misconceptions and also create clarity where we need to create clarity. Hey, Cheryl, I'm glad you're here. Hello. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what's on deck. Intrinsic core, where it is, what it is, and why it matters. We're continuing our training this month on intrinsic core, and we did take a break last week. We took a break for a very important reason. Talk about another party. It's our annual summit month, and although we've moved the month a little bit, but it's our time of year, and we just had our summit. So for those of you who are here watching with us on YouTube, and those of you who, I know Lisa and Cheryl, you were both there, who was here at the summit? Who joined the summit and had a great time? I'm like still a little bit high and a little bit sad from the after party. You know how that happens when you like have this really great party and you're like, that was great. It's over. So I would love to know that you were here with us as well. I think that's a lot of those of you who are joining us, that's where you met us, was through the summit. So happy to have you and happy to have had you at the summit as well. This month, though, in April, in Tuesday training, we're talking about intrinsic core. We're also talking about that inside of our club. And this is a really important week at the end of the month here because we're going to wrap up our month focus and move into next month's focus, which I got a highlight for at the summit last week. So see how it all sort of comes together. Our monthly focus, our Tuesday training, our summit. I'm paying attention. I'm listening in the cracks. And last week at the summit, we talked a lot again about earning a good living. Like those of us who are committed, we're at a 3-day summit, we're at weekly training every week, we're enrolled in mastery with Schatz method, we're enrolled in other courses and trainings and learning new techniques all the time. And we get to make a good living, my friends. So it's not about price gouging. It's not about being in other people's wallets. It's usually about what we think about earning a living. It's usually us. It's got really nothing to do with the climate or the inflation or the recession. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got a whole lot to do with what we think about making money, because people make money When the climate is good, people make money. When the climate isn't good, and a lot of people don't make money in either. So it's not the climate, it's about what we think about it. So we're going to move into, in May, we're going to move into what I like to describe as value for value. We bring great value to the table. We earn great value. Our clients receive great value. Everyone wins. I like the game where everyone wins. So that's going to be our focus for May. We're still wrapping up our focus right now for April. If you have not yet joined us in the club, this would be a great week to do that, by the way, because you'll have the rollover between the April content and the May content. And you can come as my guest and join us in the club for a week and just see if you like it there. But I want to give us a heads up on what we're going to move into in May so that we can start thinking now about how do we make a good living? We get to, we deserve to, and it's in service to do that. So we can have a ton of great skill, like what I'm teaching you here in April about intrinsic core and knowing what to do about it and knowing how to implement your skill and still never make any more money, or just not make enough to thrive. And that really like crushes my heart, guys, when we're in such generous service, big-hearted practitioners who aren't thriving. How can you thrive if you're like struggling? Like it doesn't go together, right? So when we want to thrive to be able to create great value for everybody. Hey, Gary, I'm glad that you're here. Nice to see you. Hello, hello. All right, so I'm going to look for our I do this every week, don't I? I feel like I figured it out last week. I'm looking for our video on YouTube so that I can watch along with you and listen in the chat for your comments and questions. And I just have to refresh the screen. Somebody remind me that for the 80th time next time, because I think I say that every week. I just have to refresh the screen. I get it all ready and set up, and then I blumble a little bit. So it's refreshed. My friends, I see you here on YouTube. I'm so glad that you're here. Let me know in the chat that you are here. If you were at the summit, I would love to know that. We're going to do Pin It to Win It again today, guys. Boom, boom. It's bonus training. Pin It to Win It is our bonus training game that we play every week that we're here on Tuesday training. How do you play? How do you win? Well, you win by pinning the letters together in the bottom of your screen until they make a word. You pin that word below this video, and I send you a bonus training. It's that easy. It's just that easy. And again, there are no strings attached, my friends. It's just because I love to be generous, and I love when you guys are hungry for the information. Speaking of the information, shall we get into it, into intrinsic core? Now, we've done intrinsic core again for a few weeks here in April in Tuesday training. We did take a break last week while we paused for summit. So sometimes it's a good reminder to just get all caught up again. And I promised you that I would ask you guys, what is your definition of intrinsic core? If you tell me your definition, then I will be able to create clarity for you on that definition and also what I know the intrinsic core to be and why it matters. So Anna says you were at the summit, amazing 3 days. You are welcome, Anna. All right. Anybody? Cheryl or Lisa, do you want to take a hot seat guess? Lisa, it's so good that your sun's getting brighter because you're getting darker. It's like you're in the shadow and your voice is just going to speak the truth from there. See, now you move and then the light changes. Isn't that great? Did you see that, Cheryl? That was awesome. Okay, who wants to give us a running definition? Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, I would say that the intrinsic core is a group of muscles that are really responsible for keeping our core strong and healthy through they govern balance and strength for us, and so they're vital to be strengthened and so that they offer the stability and the balance that we need to have optimal alignment and movement.
So good, Lisa. I love it. Way to go. Being brave. I love that you said vital. Absolutely, they're vital. And yep, Schatz method practitioners get that. You have been satiated from the pond of the importance of intrinsic. I love this for you. And it's really common to have confusion around core as a concept and what I call intrinsic core. And we've all been told, you know, plank challenges and building your core and building your strength. And I get it. I absolutely understand why there can be some confusion. So we're going to create a bunch of clarity today. Lisa, you gave us a great start. Anna says that they are responsible and allow optimal posture and balance. Yes. So the intrinsic muscles do. And that's the key that makes this question, intrinsic core, different than just what is core. And I've also, I believe, added to some of the confusion at times, right? Like trying to define what are the muscles that are core muscles. Sometimes we think the core muscles are the abs. And I understand that actually. There's 4 layers of abs. And even the outside layer, rectus abdominis, the most superficial, the one that runs from the ribs down to the pubic bone, most superficial, meaning he's way out here, and then there's a layer in and a layer in and a layer in. Even at the outermost layer, the ab muscles still, when they're toned, compress the organs in. So as you can see, there's like this big open space here, right? And so what happens to all the organs? Largely digestive organs, right? Not vital organs, which are held protected underneath the rib cage. But the digestion, which, it's not that they're not vital. It's just that I don't know what the definition of a vital organ is specifically, but I would say that if, one of the digestive organs was punctured, you'd have a longer lead time before that would create a fatal injury, before that would become a fatal injury. But if we just think of forget the injury part, forget that there's nothing punctured here. I still think that the digestive organs are vital because if we're not digesting and absorbing our nutrients, we are then dying. We have no nutrients to run the ship. So they're still important. Let's call them important or significant. They're still super significant here. So the work that the rectus abdominis does as it compresses these organs in and holds them in space is absolutely significant. For sure, for sure, for sure. But by definition, that rectus abdominis is not an intrinsic muscle, even though when he's toned, he compresses the organs in. The action that he takes, his contraction, if you will, is a phasic action. And that's where we start, I hear you, Cheryl, that's where we start to get into are we talking core? Or are we talking intrinsic? Or are we talking phasic core or intrinsic core? Are they the same? Are they different? I get it. That's why we're clearing it up. What is it? Where is it? And why do I, as a practitioner, need to know that? Okay, so abs, specifically rectus abdominis and the obliques that sit just beneath it, external and internal obliques, have been considered the core in largely movement practices. Sure, that makes a ton of sense because they actually look visible in their movement. So when the rectus abdominis contracts, he moves one end to the other end and vice versa. There's movement there. We get spine flexion. We're doing crunches. That's great. This looks like it's the core of the body. It is. It would make sense then that rectus abdominis would be a core muscle. But the distinction we're making today is intrinsic core versus core. So again, I'm bringing clarity and then we'll parse it out. The obliques also in their diagonal framework, how they sit on a diagonal, they create rotation at the torso and also lateral flexion at the torso. Right here, looks like core. It is the core, not the intrinsic core, just the core. So the core of the body, the structure, the vessel, if you will. And then we get into the 4th abdominal muscle, which is transverse abdominis, and it sits like this. And when it contracts, there is no movement. Now we're on to something. That action is intrinsic. So when all muscles work, they're contracting. All muscles, and their job, their action is contraction. When they're contracting, what's moving? When it's a phasic muscle, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. When it's a phasic muscle that contracts, you see joints moving. You see the spine flexing. You see the spine rotating, spine flexing, spine rotating. Phasic action. When the 4th abdominal muscle, transverse abdominis, contracts, you don't see a joint action. But what you do see is the body lifts away from gravity. So if I am in alignment, stacked with my 4 curves, and I engage transverse abdominis, I will get a smidgen taller. Just a smidgen taller. Did you see it? I'm wearing a necklace on purpose today. I have two lines so that you can see like possible lift. So now I am in a lumbar curve, right? Up on the apex of my sit bones. And now I am not, and so you guys are too. Thanks for playing along. And now I am not engaging actively transverse abdominis, even though I'm upright. Now I am going to engage transverse abdominis. See what happened? And I uplifted a little bit. So the action of an intrinsic muscle is there, but it's not a joint action that you see like with a blind eye, an open eye from across the room. It's a smaller movement that opposes gravity. And that's really important. And we're going to keep building on that in a second. Perry said, I was reading about the definition between the two muscle groups. One group can be influenced by external forces. The other group aren't necessarily influenced by external forces. Exactly, except for gravity, because that is an external force. Beautiful. And I think that's what you were meaning, Perry, that the intrinsic muscles were not influenced by external forces. Is that what you meant? I'm reading between the lines there and putting in my own idea. Okay, so part of the confusion on what is the core and intrinsic core could be this conversation on abs. There's another conversation that I think adds to the confusion and lack of clarity, and that's this idea of isometric contraction. So when we're isometrically contracting, we are not physically moving, but we are generating a lot of power in our muscles. They are contracting, they're actively contracting, but they're not moving. And that gets a little bit more interesting to try to explain. All right, awesome, Perry. Gets a little bit more interesting to try to explain because if you're just learning intrinsic muscles for the first time, you might be thinking, well, Gina, you just said that there's no movement, but now if I move isometrically, isn't that an intrinsic muscle? No. The interesting part about isometric contraction is that that is a type of contraction that happens on a phasic muscle. So a phasic muscle is, again, the ones that move joints. You can see them moving, and you can also hold them with resistance. They're not creating any more continual joint action, but they are contracting. Those are phasic muscles. Phasic muscles are not intrinsic muscles. They're different. Again, the phasic muscles move joints. Intrinsic muscles do not. And I just engaged my transverse abdominis if you were wondering what I did there, because you don't see it as well unless you're really watching at the moment it engages. Okay, so that's all I'm really going to share about the different types of contractions. And I want to just offer here, in case some of you are curious about why, or even taking yourself there. I did train at one point as a personal trainer. I loved it. It was awesome. I learned a ton. I also learned what was missing in that training that I was interested in offering my clients. But one of the things that I didn't love about personal training is it felt at times that it could get pedantic. And I understand why, but it got pedantic in definitions in places that didn't really answer the orthopedic issue I was up to. So I'm not saying any shade on personal training or yoga or Pilates or any, guys, I'm certified. Like, I get it. I love being a movement practitioner. But the part of the movement practices that I extracted and took for myself took me back into the orthopedic, how do I fix it? Not how do I make them move best, except for the functional alignment part, but not how to do the activity best. That's what I should say. Not how to do the Pilates or the yoga or the personal training. I'm not certified in Pilates, but I am in the other two. And still there's an overlap because the way you do it when you're rehabbing to correct what you did incorrectly should happen when you're moving so that you don't get into the pickle in the first place. There's definitely an overlap there. The place where it doesn't overlap for me clinically is in this place of like different types of contraction. I don't need it. I just need the lever system to be balanced. I need the muscle to engage when it's supposed to engage, and I need it to lengthen when it's supposed to lengthen. The types of contracting and whether I hold an isometric versus a eccentric versus all of that was lovely to learn, and I don't use it clinically. I don't have a strong application for it. Doesn't mean I don't think it's important or needed. It's just not needed for the work that I do. So if you are one of those people who knows all those different types of contractions and you wanted to go there just a minute ago, totally fine. It's a different conversation than I'm having today. I'm not saying it's not needed. It's just not needed for what I'm teaching you today. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. And in that place of knowing a bunch of different types of contractions, like isometric, concentric, eccentric, we start to be like, I don't know, is that phasic or is it intrinsic? Don't panic. All of that is where it gets confusing. And that's where I say it's a little pedantic where it doesn't need to be. And I'm going to iron that out for you right now. Okay. Promise. Take a deep breath. We're going to keep going. Okay. So when a muscle is classified as phasic or intrinsic, it makes it much clearer in our minds, if we're working orthopedically, more than the type of contraction that it's doing, more than whether or not it's active stretching. This is another phrase, another group of definitions that used to really throw me off a little bit when I was in massage therapy school. I don't know, is it active assisted stretching or is it passive assisted stretching? Or is it active stretching or is it passive stretching? I don't know. Okay, so the answer to that question is it doesn't matter in the work that I do. All that matters, again, just like with the types of contraction, is the lever balanced? Is contraction happening on one side and lengthening happening on the other side at the same time? If it's not, it doesn't matter what type of contraction or stretch I want to call it. I just need to restore the lever. Then I can get on to deciding what type of stretching it is. So that's why I say from my application, I don't really get bogged down in those definitions. I learned it one time, I passed the tests, and I don't use them clinically. Okay. And still, we can use that to get a little confused when we're talking phasic or intrinsic, and I don't want you to. Phasic is when there is a joint action happening, something you can identify, movement you can see in the mirror, changing shape of the body. Intrinsic action is still contracting muscles, but that contraction creates the action of optimized alignment and balance. I was going to say posture and balance, optimizing alignment and balance. So I've said those a few times differently. Posture and balance is the shortest shorthand for the job that intrinsic muscles do. Posture and balance, posture and balance, posture and balance, not movement, not joint action, nothing you see, posture and balance. Expand it a bit more. Optimized alignment, optimized posture. So I said this 2 weeks ago when we met here on Tuesday training. This is still posture. It's just not very healthy posture. It's not going to sustain my frame for very long, but it's still a posture. So it's optimal posture. And we can test that as well. If you do the spine flexion again, that rectus abdominis does, if you do the spine flexion, thank you for playing along, and then you draw in your belly button, transverse abdominis, that alone doesn't lift you all the way back up again. In fact, drawing in transverse abdominis when you're in spine flexion really doesn't engage. When you draw your belly button in when you're in spine flexion, you spine flex more, which means you're adding more rectus abdominis. You're doing more joint action. Intrinsic muscles are engaged when you already start optimally aligned in your skeleton, and then those muscles hold that alignment. It's a little bit of a catch-22 because muscles move bone, but muscles move bone refers to phasic muscles primarily. These muscles move this bone. And there is still some movement in intrinsic muscles, slightly classified differently, because they move me to a more optimal alignment, and then they hold me in that alignment. They don't move me where I can see it. They hold me in that alignment. So all muscles move bone, different varieties of movement, really easily classified in these two different categories, phasic and intrinsic, instead of isometric, eccentric, concentric. Like instead of doing all of that, just what are they doing? Bigger, like a bigger umbrella, topper, bigger picture, right? And then you can start to get down into it. Okay, so all that to say, if I'm looking for what is an intrinsic core versus a core, core could be either. Core could be all the phasic muscles we already talked about, stabilizing, strengthening, six-pack abbing, compressing organs. For sure, that's core. But intrinsic core is deeper than that. It's the muscles that are way deeper than rectus abdominis here, all the way around these bones, holding these bones in alignment, holding these bones in alignment, not just near the bones hanging out, holding the bones in alignment. And when those muscles are toned, they also create balance, healthy balance. In the same way that when rectus abdominis is toned, he compresses the organs. See, when rectus abdominis isn't toned, even though one of his jobs is to compress the organs, if he's not toned and he's stretched way out over here, he's literally doing the opposite of holding the organs, even though that's his job. Same thing goes with intrinsic muscles. If their job is to hold the alignment, they must be near that finished job to be able to do that job. Just like rectus abdominis needs to be near his origin and insertion to be able to do the job. And then he can only do the job if he's toned to do the job. Same thing with intrinsic muscles. Just because they're along the spine doesn't mean they're holding the spine. They need to be toned to hold the spine. The same way rectus abdominis needs to be toned to hold in the organs. Is this making sense? Super landing? Okay, great. So intrinsic muscles hold this design. Well, not this design. We all know about Murph. If you've not met Murph before, he is the Murphy's child of the alignment bodywork therapist because he's a heck of janky, but he's so like reliable. He shows up for work all the time. Look, I have him right now on the tabletop on his sit bones. Would you look at the lean? He needs help, my friends. He needs help, but he shows up all the time. So reliably. So when I'm saying, when I'm referring back to the structure and this alignment structure, I am talking about how we were designed. Four curves of the spine, rib cage is pinned equally. If you were to drop a plumb line from it to the front of the pelvis, they would be aligned with each other. The rib cage wouldn't be sunken in like this. When we take our shoulders down, our rib cage moves posteriorly, like it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be that the pelvis is tucked under or back like peacock feathers. When we're talking about intrinsic muscles, they're holding this design if Murph was ideal, not a distorted design. Right? They're not able to do their job when we're in a distorted outside of our designed alignment. But once we're in this alignment, then they can engage and then hold that alignment. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, but really what it is, it's a beautiful relationship between muscles and bones. The same thing goes for phasic muscles. If I have two bones where phasic muscles attach and those two bones are not in arrangement with each other the way they were designed to be, that phasic muscle also can't do his phasic job fully. We talked about that in our maximizing lever system class. So we know this to be true for both muscle groups. That's why I, again, recommend learning phasic and intrinsic before you learn the types of stretching and the types of contracting, because it just simplifies it. There's like rules that apply to both muscles, rules that apply to both muscles. And once you learn those rules, then it's just more consistent and you're not bouncing around with several different ideas. Is this making sense to you guys? The clarity on it? Okay, cool. So once we have this idea around intrinsic and phasic muscles, the intrinsic core then would be what? Has your definition updated since we started talking today? Has your definition of intrinsic core updated at all since we started talking today? Anybody? Yes, Lisa? You want to give it to us again? Want to give us a fresh one? You're muted when you're ready. No?
There we go.
Yes, do it.
The intrinsic muscles are deep and they hold the really the bones along the spine, along with some others, but they're deep. And when we're in, con well,
Got it.
well, they're the ones that need to hold the axial part of our body together,
Mhm.
with to have the optimal alignment.
Super true. Yep. Is there more for you?
I like the way you said it better.
I like the way you said it. I like the way you're evolving with it. Yeah, it's good. Is there more, Lisa?
Oh boy. Yeah, there's more. Well, in the balance, um, because they're balancing muscles, uh, and strengthen, when that's working, it really holds our body together
Yeah, it does. It holds us together.
in an optimal way. I mean, we all know people who have had problems with their spine, their vertebrae, mostly their discs and
Mhm.
those kinds. And they're very common in our day-to-day life. It's not because we went out and did some great movement. It's
Mhm.
because we strengthened them with our intrinsic core, which
Yep.
causes us to have balance.
So good. You brought up so many good points. You brought up deep. I love this idea.
Deep.
Think deep when you think intrinsic. Think axial skeleton, predominantly, not 100%, but absolutely more than 90%. And you brought up spine injuries, how we hurt ourselves. And that's really the why, right? We said earlier when we started talking, why do we need to know this? Because it starts to show itself again in our treatment setting when we are faced with symptoms that our clients present with. Don't chase the symptom, just go back to what the body needs. How do you know what it needs? Because you know its design. Cheryl, you were going to add something?
Well, I wanted to add the word posture.
Okay.
She said balance many times, and I just wanted to add that word posture. So the intrinsic core muscles that is their job and their responsibility for both of those things.
Absolutely. So important. So if it's their job and their responsibility, and it is both, that means that it's necessary or we wouldn't been given these muscles. So optimal alignment, optimal posture, and balance are necessary. How many of you have clients who have less than favorable posture? 100%.
Everyone.
Yeah. How many of you have fallen guilty of your own less than optimal posture on the daily, right? So it's a universal, right? It's compassionate. It's not a thing that we use to, you know, arm wrestle our clients with for sure. We know that it's needed because our body came with it. None of this is superfluous. This is magic. The more we know about it, the more we know what it needs and what we can do for it. Go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I was just going to say, the more you know about it, the more you become mindful of it and you begin to change your own habits. So that's really my takeaway from learning so much about the intrinsic core is like, okay, how do I apply it in my own body and how it's already changed my own posture and my own balance. And yeah, so it's cool to see it in action, even
Love this.
though we can't see the action.
Yes, yes, yes. I love
Yeah.
this Ruth for a million reasons because I know what you're working on. And also I love it. I'll come right back to you, Gary. Also, I love it because when we are breaking the habit of being mad at the body or pointing our finger at our client for not doing homework, the first thing we get to do is change it in ourselves first. If your clients aren't getting results and your posture is not intrinsically aware, then how can we ask them to be more and better than we are? Right? It's like the more we know, as you said, Cheryl, the more we implement on ourselves, the more we can lead by example and then also create results for others too. Love this. Gary?
in optimized posture, how much leeway do we have with the spine, posterior and anterior, and still staying optimized? Because when I was checking my own, I was noticing, okay, there's this range that I could stay in. It doesn't have to be rigid. There's a certain amount of flexibility there. So in the term optimized, does that include that range or not? Am I correct about the range of move? Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked me that because I wanted to ask you, what do you mean by the range? The range of what, Gary? The range of the vertebra
The
moving?
range of movement. So yeah, the
Movement
range of
where?
movement. So I'm moving anterior and posterior, and my posture is moving that way. My spine is moving back. My head's moving back. And
Okay,
at some point,
let me
it's
stop you for
optimized. But
no, let me
yeah,
stop you. This is where we can get super quick, quickly.
okay.
Ready? Okay. When you say I'm moving back, anterior and posterior, I still want you to identify the joint action that you are creating. Back to what? What is moving? And this is why I'm pausing for just a second. This is why we went over our principles so many times. So many times, so many times. We started them, we did them in January. We're doing the live course again starting tomorrow. This is why right here, this conversation, it makes it so much quicker to get to the answer that you're looking for. When you say forward and back, I'm sitting in the room with you, in the virtual room. I'm sitting in the room with you, and I am still not sure what body part we're talking about. So when we are in the room with the body we're serving, what body part are we talking about? The one that's moving. What is the movement? Always put a joint action to it. If you put a joint action to it, you'll get real clear quickly what's actually moving, what should be moving. And then you'll have a quicker answer, maybe if not already solving the answer for you. So Gary, when you say, thank you for letting me pause there and fill us in on the why I'm asking these questions. When you say anterior and posterior, what's moving, meaning what joint action are you creating when you're posterior and anterior? I think I know, but I'm not sure. Do you know? You're muted.
My guess is lumbar.
Okay.
If I'm holding the rest of the four curves up and I'm thinking about how am I actually moving, I'm not moving my head. I'm actually moving in the lumbar area.
Okay. So then we're going to get to the answer to your question. And you're still giving me signs that you're not quite sure if that's true. Here's what I think, and I can't move Murph's spine because he's bolted, the one thing that's keeping him together. So we'll go with it. To answer your question, the question on the table is how much leeway do I have outside of optimal posture to still be able to engage intrinsically? That's the question on the table. I'm still there with you. And how much leeway do we have to do that was the qualifier that we're up to. If Murph's spine represents a balanced four-curve spine, sacral, lumbar, thoracic, and cervical, and it does, and I'm going to move forward and back, he hasn't actually moved his spine. What he did was more hip flexion and less hip flexion. So then I don't have any leeway on my intrinsic muscles because that's hip flexion. That's a joint, that's phasic. So right there, we answered the question there, right? So joint actions for the win, babies. If this is still like something you want to learn, my goodness, let's do it. We're doing it live. I'm doing 8 principles. I'm doing them till I'm like, can't say it anymore this year. I want you guys to have this. It cuts through so much noise so quickly, like just now, right? Because the spine can get complicated. There's all these different joints in it. And then you got the sacrum and da 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 da. So you could have been spinning on that question for some time, Gary, if you were with a client instead of with us, right? I don't want you guys spinning. I want you to like get there faster, you know? And I'm going to go back to the spine because you also said maybe it was lumbar. Hey, Jean, intrinsic core truly Oh, I can't see. There's a little heart. I'm not upset about it, but there's a little heart on my screen. So I can't see behind that heart what the word is that you wrote. Something by the information. What is the live course? The live course is it used to be called Applied Functional Anatomy, and now it's Functional Anatomy Principles, because I kept referring to it as principles, and my mastery practitioners were like, what course are you talking about? So I'm renaming it. While I'm renaming it, I'm re-recording it so that I could be with you live. And we're running through it starting tomorrow for 6 weeks so that you all have it live and you have the new name, new and improved, but the content is exactly the same. The only thing we're doing differently in the course live this time around that we didn't do the first time is we're going to train and workshop in the same lessons. Instead of train and then pause, come back and do workshopping, we're to do train and lesson, train and workshop, train and workshop, train and workshop. So it's same content, just laid out slightly differently, new, fresh name. And we start tomorrow. All right, let's go back to you. And let me know if I answered your question, Jean. Let me go back to the spine. If it was the spine moving forward and back and not a phasic action of hip flexion and extension, or less hip flexion, I should say. If it was the spine that was moving, you already have the answer, Gary, don't you? No, you're muted. I can't hear you, but I saw your face. It looked like you had an aha moment there.
Yeah, when you're teaching, it's so profound, and I want to feel what's going on because I don't want to wait to work with a client.
Right.
So for me, it's kinesthetic learning, and I just kind of did that smile because I changed the movement from the hip flexion to the lumbar flexion. It was very different.
Yes. And then what did you learn when you
Yeah.
did the lumbar flexion? What did you learn about the intrinsic muscles when you did lumbar flexion? Something was in there, but how is it computing?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure which muscles I was using. I know I was looking at the movement rather than, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Totally fine to look at movement, guys. Go ahead, Cheryl. You got it?
In my body, it's harder to engage the intrinsic when I'm in lumbar flexion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in that spine alignment, so I can't engage. Just like holding the urine, even that, like it's when I'm got a curved lumbar spine, it's not the same as if I'm upright.
It's true. And it's not just in your body. So again, I'm so grateful to have this time live with you guys. When we're explaining things to our clients, one of the ways that you create trust and authority with them is by not minimizing what you know. So I love the softness in your delivery, Cheryl, and it's not just in your body. It's in everybody's body. If we had everybody in lumbar flexion, everybody would have a problem engaging intrinsically. Everybody. So you make that like a statement, and then your client can't make excuses for why they're not going to comply, or they don't want to sit up, or it's too hard, or all the things. Yeah, so good. And also, why is it harder in lumbar spine flexion? That answer is the anatomy. Why is it harder in spine flexion to engage intrinsically? We actually started to get this answer at the beginning of our time today. Is it clicking? Why is it harder to engage intrinsically when the lumbar spine is in flexion? Okay, let me give you a couple ways to think about it. When the lumbar spine is not in flexion, when the lumbar spine looks like Murph's, is this neutral or is this a joint action?
Neutral.
Neutral. Neutral is needed. Oh, I just came up with another. Neutral is needed for intrinsic engagement. Neutral alignment, neutral positioning of bones is needed for intrinsic engagement. We just did that together live, guys. I love when these things flow out. Okay, so this is neutral. When I go into lumbar flexion, is there a joint action?
Yes.
yeah, literally flexion of the lumbar spine. Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah, literally flexion. And so if there's a joint action, which group of muscles does the joint action?
The paraspinals in that one.
The phasic muscles.
Right.
Phasic muscles do joint actions. Intrinsic muscles don't do joint actions. They hold the alignment of joints, mostly bones though, but they don't physically create a visible joint action. That would be phasic.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't mean you can't have both at the same time. Sometimes you do have both at the same time. How do you know? Here's how you know. Number 3, when I create lumbar flexion, does Murph's body and your body and my body and Lisa's and Gary's and everybody else's, does our body move towards gravity or away from gravity?
Towards gravity with phasic.
Towards gravity with lumbar flexion.
With lumbar flexion.
Towards gravity is a phasic action, which means it's not an intrinsic action.
Right.
So you just like, do you like process of eliminate? Okay, is it? Oh, no, it can't be. There's a joint action. I'm moving towards gravity and my spine does not look like it came. Okay, well then clearly that's not intrinsic. If it's supposed to be the way you came, sitting upright, well then that's a different approach. That's a different need with the client. But just to identify what movement, as you said it, Gary, what's moving, first go to joint action. What is the joint action? Is that joint action a phasic action or is it joints and bones being held away from gravity? That's intrinsic. And now I know what I'm up to. And when you can express that to your client, it's like, look, this is how we came. These are this whole host of muscles, deep, as Lisa says, right around the axial skeleton, 90% of them. Absolutely. And the client goes, wow, I didn't know that. Huh. So that when you ask them to return their spine to their neutral and optimal 4 curves, not have a diminished lumbar curve and complain of herniated disc pain. Oh no, the herniated disc is not the problem. It's the lack of lumbar curve that is. When you're in that conversation with your client, you now have anatomy that's explaining it. You're not arm wrestling them away from them saying, do you know what it's like to be in pain? No, yeah, I do. And I also know how you're designed and I would really like you to be out of pain. That's why I'm here for you, my dear friend and client. Is it making sense? Guys got it? Okay. Little punctuation. Lisa, I see it clicked for you. Yeah, I see like a look of like woohoo and relief on your face, which I love. Anna, some paraspinals are lengthened when the spine is flexed. Again, it's right behind that heart, Anna. I can't quite see that word. Some paraspinals, something lengthened when the spine is flexed. Sure. When the spine is flexed, absolutely. Because paraspinals, some of them are in that fancy category of dual roles. Just like gluteus medius is a dual role muscle, psoas is a dual role muscle, paraspinals, some of them are dual role muscles, absolutely. So they can be, and that's why I said sometimes you are doing phasic and intrinsic at the same time, sometimes you're not. But rather than pile drive yourself on memorizing when, just like pile driving yourself on what type of stretch is it versus pile driving yourself on what type of contraction is it, just is the spine neutral? Start there. Start with a clean, fresh slate of clarity and then go from there. If this is not what the spine looks like, the one that's in front of you that you are treating as the practitioner, then something's off. And if there's pain, it's probably related to this. Great. Restore this, there will be no pain, which is one of the things that I love to experience at work. And I know you guys do too. Okay, so a little recap then on intrinsic core. Intrinsic core, not the same as core. There's some differences and there are some parallels and I appreciate them, but we're looking for clarity here so that you know what to treat, so that you know how to get them out of pain or prevent them from being in pain. That's why we're diving in here on this one. Intrinsic core means intrinsic muscles. Core as in core of the earth, center to the whole being, not just here. I can point here. I mean up in here too, but you can't see my hand up in there. But I mean along his thoracic spine just as much as I mean along his lumbar spine, just as much as I mean in around his sacrum and inside his pelvic floor and up in his cervical spine. I mean all of that. I mean all of it. Intrinsic, axial skeleton, and a few on the appendicular skeleton. We talked about glute med. And it's mostly not an appendicular muscle when it's doing its intrinsic job. It's doing an intrinsic job in relationship to the axial skeleton, in relationship to getting these anominants intrinsic, in towards the midline and up away from gravity, and more up than in. So there have been, I remember a yoga teacher I was talking to once who said, well, of course, rectus abdominis is an intrinsic muscle. It's going into the core. Like, it's going in, yes, in as I crunch doing a abdominal crunch. Yes, it's going in, but it's also creating a joint action and moving my whole body down. So in is not the same as midline and up. It's more up than it is in. So don't let the in be where you stop on that. And I saw you, Gary, it clicked. So please hear me when I'm making that distinction. You know, it's interesting. We have so many words in the English language, easy for me to say. And I love etymology and like where word roots come from and the different meanings of words and slight differences between this word and this word. It lights me up. I love this. And still, what makes me so reverent to the body is that I feel like there's not enough words to describe it. And I'm a good talker and I'm not, lost for words. And I feel like we do a pretty good job here. But when it really gets down to it, there are just experiences that this creates that you almost don't have words for. Does that make sense to you guys? You feel that? And when I get to intrinsic, that's also what comes up for me, which is also this piece right here that I'm sharing with you this month. This is the piece that was the download, most of the download. When I didn't even know what intrinsic meant. Perry, you were saying earlier that you did some research on it. There was no research on it when I first heard the word. I had no idea what this word meant. I had to figure it out. And I'm happy that I did. And I'm happy that I could explain it to you and share it with you so that you guys can know it and do great things with it as well. But when it came to what the intrinsic muscles were actually doing, I had a hard time explaining it at first because it was such an experience more than it was a word. It was an experience more than something visual. It was an experience more than it was something I could do. And so it just reminds me like, it's just magic. This whole thing is just magic and so lovely. So I hope that this lit you up as well to talk about intrinsic muscles in this way. Do you guys have any questions? Any remaining questions on intrinsic core, the difference between intrinsic core versus phasic core and why we need to know it? Hope I did the recap. I feel like I might not have recapped completely. Phasic is joint action. Intrinsic is not. Intrinsic is up away from gravity and hugging around the axial skeleton, opposing gravity to create balance. When do we need balance? We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Every other step is a one-legged experience. Every other step, whether you've ever been on a yoga mat and done tree pose or not, you are a balancing creature. So interesting that we get into yoga and then tree pose becomes a hard pose. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, heck, we got some trouble here. Why is tree pose hard? We're literally tree posing our way through the world. Like every other step is a one-legged experience. Why is this hard? Because we don't have these intrinsic muscles. Big, big, big gaping hole of the work that we get to do for folks and fill it in. All right, so the why, the what, the where, and the why. We did it. You guys will never say core again. It's okay to say 4-letter words, but this one you'll say with a different flavor from here on out. Is it core or is it core? All right, it could be different. Okay, my friends, I had such a good time with you guys today. Here's our last pin, letter of our pin for today. I had so much fun with you guys today. For those of you who are coming to join me for the functional anatomy principles tomorrow, I am super looking forward to that. There are obviously live trainings for 6 weeks, and everybody has access to lifetime replays. It's just more fun to learn in person, and you can ask questions and I can workshop it out with you and see what you're doing in your own body. So please come live if you can. Then again, the 29th is our YouTube subscriber celebration class. So mark your calendar for that. And this month in the club, we are wrapping up Intrinsic Core. The whole course and all of the workshopping that goes with it is in the club right now. And then we are shifting into value and money mindset, becoming mind ninjas around our money so that we can use all of this incredible information and thrive in our practice, not just be highly skilled and struggling in our practice. That doesn't work, guys. We get to be high vibing. The world needs us to do so. So we got to make sure our cups are full and stay full, and our pockets too. All right, my friends, I had such a blast talking shop with you guys today. I will look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Same time, same channel. Until then, have a great week, guys. Bye for now.